All right. So thanks for coming out, guys. A lot of interest, which I'm super psyched for. Now, for those of you who don't know and just saw the link, it's like, your brain on oils. Um, it's more of we decided to create this book because when we started seeing oils, we actually got turned on to the oils because of pre and post brain map that we did. And so I'm gonna show you guys what a brain map is in a moment. But when we got into brain mapping, we saw some extraordinary effects of what was happening with changes in the brain with exposure to essential oils. Which really blew our minds. The changes that we saw. So my beautiful wife and I wrote a book on 11 essential oils, and they conveniently happen to be the essential oils that are in the starter kit for Young Living. And so we went through and we looked at them and we compared the data to what we see every day in the clinic. Unfortunately, she's not here with me today. She wasn't able to make it, but she'll be at the next webinar. So let's get right into it here. We only have about 45 minutes. So if I can find my mouse, I'm juggling about 3 screens right now. So I apologize for any slow processing that occurs. So just a little bit about what we do at Neurvana Health and how we got into this. We do functional health. So we really are experts at uncovering root causes of illness. Using specialized testing like a brain map, using supplementation, lifestyle changes, diets, things like that. Now, when we uncovered the oils, that was just, opened up a whole other realm of opportunity for us to not only help people speed up their healing process, but help teach them how to do it on their own as well. QEEG brain mapping is something that we're going to be talking a lot about. It's a non-invasive technology. It evaluates brain function, based on electrical activity in the brain. So we put this really funny looking hat on. It looks like a spider. It picks up electrical activity, and then we're actually able to compare electrical activity to gender matched and age matched controls. So if you're a 40-year-old female, you're going to be compared to other 40-year-old females. The further out of range you are, of course, the higher likelihood you have symptoms. So we're really able to see above and beyond what a normal MRI or a normal CT scan can see. Even a normal EEG doesn't really show us a lot of what's going on. And so we can start seeing functional issues, right? Things that don't have a structural component to them necessarily. Chronic pain, trauma, ADD, autism, anxiety, depression, sleep issues, fatigue. And we've now mapped over 2,000 brains with other medical data, and it's just outstanding what you can see from it. So this is what a normal brain map looks like. So on the left hand side is a map of the surface of the brain. So the surface of our brain, of course, is eliciting electrical activity as brain cells communicate. The top section there you see right here, I was going to turn my laser pointer on here. This top section here where there's circles with color in it, this is telling us whether certain frequencies in the brain are high or low. Now this is ideally what you want to see. You don't want to see a lot of color. It's going to be hard to see, but right here is the scale. So as you get closer to red, you're getting up into the 95 to 99 percentile of elevations, which is very high, right? There's not very many people that are showing higher levels than that aren't having symptoms. Opposite, if you get a deep dark blue, you're showing low levels of that frequency. And depending on what frequency it's happening in, and depending on what area of the brain it's happening in, it tells us what is happening with the function of the brain. Down here, you're seeing 3 rows of pink colored map, and there's a bunch of lines. So we're concerned with the lines. We don't want to see a lot of lines. Lines indicate communication issues. Now again, this could be over communication, where the brain is kind of stuck in a state, or under communication, where the brain's not functioning well enough. Okay, it's not talking well enough to itself. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail on that. This map here, the square map, is another way to look at more deep down structures. So we can look into deeper cortical layers of the brain and determine function based on that. So it works the same way. We have frequencies on the bottom here from lowest to highest, delta to high beta. And then we have all these numbers, okay, left side of the brain and then the right side of the brain. Okay. Now, I also apologize. I'm sure that we have questions coming in right now. And I always say that, I'll have some time to address at the end. I may not. We may have to have another webinar on just asking questions, which is fine. But I can't see the questions right now. With my screens, I only have so much up. So my apologies if I'm not addressing anything right now. You can always put questions on the Facebook page as well, okay? And I'll be going through to answer those. So let's get into it here. What do essential oils really do in the brain? Now, for most of you, you know that when the body responds to any odor inhalation, particularly ones with alkaloids like essential oils, you're going to get stimulation of the olfactory nerve. Okay, olfactory literally just means smell. Fancy word for smell. Okay, that is going to actually trigger lower down brainstem regions as well as the limbic system. Okay, so you can get responses right down the spinal cord. You can get responses all the way up to the level of the brain, and they can be very, very quick. Okay, as you'll see when we did our experiments, people started smelling oils directly after their baseline was collected. Baseline meaning they were just sitting there without inhaling anything. And it was within seconds you would have started seeing changes. And so it was very immediate. It wasn't like we waited a long time or exposed the brain to the oil for a long period of time. It was minutes to seconds. Okay, so it happens very, very quickly. Because everybody's limbic system is a little bit different, meaning the limbic system it's developed throughout our life. And of course, we all have unique experiences. This is developing from the time we're in our mom's womb. So we're even adopting our mom's experiences at an epigenetic level, right? So it's very, very unique. It's like a fingerprint or a DNA, the way the limbic system works. Only difference is we don't know how to sequence it yet, like we do fingerprints and we do DNA. We're getting close, and brain mapping allows us to get closer. But everybody's going to react a little bit differently, and so that's another reason why we wrote Your Brain on Oils, is because we want to show you the opportunities and the different ways that oils can act in the brain. Sometimes people are triggered by certain oils, and we may never be able to explain why, but we just know that there's another oil they can try. Okay, so it's very unique to people, which is why we took a big sample size. Right? We ended up with about 50 people that we mapped. So we had a bigger sample size to see just how people would react differently to different oils. Okay, so we're going to talk about lavender today. We're only going to have time to talk about a couple oils. So we're going to go in depth though, and I'm hoping that you guys can get some good insights as to other ways to apply these oils, and I'm sure you may get some thoughts of who it might help while I talk. So this is an example of a brain map that's not regulated very well. Okay, so this brain map is out of the normal scale. You see a lot of red coming up in certain regions. You see a lot of dark blue coming up as well. And then you see a lot of communication issues going on down here. Remember, we don't want to see a lot of lines, okay? Now, this is always a better way to start talking about the different frequencies in the brain. This is all outlined in the book too, so don't worry too much about remembering everything. Delta frequency is the lowest frequency in our brain. It's elicited by the brainstem. So the spinal cord and the brainstem tend to send the delta signal out. So these frequencies are generated. It's like a power station. Okay, so you have a certain power station generating a certain frequency. Now, when delta goes high, like you see in these sections here by the ears, now every map you'll see the nose at the top. So the top part is always the front of the brain. So the right side, left side, and the bottom part is the back of the brain. Anytime you see high delta, you're looking at enhanced activation of something called glial cells. And now they activate generally in inflammation scenarios. So if you have somebody in for a brain map who's really sick with a flu, they're going to show a lot of high delta activity. Okay. So that's one thing that we found in this person's brain map was a lot of high delta. When delta goes low, which of course isn't the case here, but if we were to see it go low, it's usually impaired cellular immunity or cell-mediated immunity. It's I like to call it the smart division of the immune system. When delta goes high, it's the dumb division of the immune system. So the dumb division inflames, the smart division tends to decrease inflammation. So right now what we're seeing is kind of an activation of inflammation in this person's brain. Very common to see this in our work because most people show inflammation in our line of work. It's just inevitable nowadays. High levels of inflammation, which is why chronic illness is on the rise, right? We're not getting any better working with chronic illness the way we're working with it because we're not addressing this inflammatory cause. The next frequency comes directly from the limbic system. Okay, so when we were talking about the limbic system before, anytime you see theta go high, it's the limbic system hijacking the outer brain. Usually going to cause brain fog, can cause emotional distress. Oftentimes feeling out of control can be due to the limbic system hijacking that part of the brain. When it goes low, it's decreased access for the limbic system to the outer cortex. So sometimes we'll call this emotional dissociation, where the emotional system's not communicating well enough with that outer part of the brain, which we usually call the cognitive or the conscious brain. Alpha is basically the idling rate of the brain. So when alpha goes high, it kind of shuts down areas of the brain. For example, if we close our eyes, alpha goes very high in the back of our brain because our brain doesn't need to encode any visual information anymore. Our eyes are now closed. That's what's supposed to happen. So alpha is kind of like the gatekeeper. It shuts down areas when areas need to be shut down. If we didn't have alpha, we would be in seizure all the time because every part of the brain would be firing. So it's a really important frequency. Beta and high beta kind of come hand in hand. They're like the gas pedal of the brain. Okay, so when they go high, it's like the brain is speeding down the freeway. Okay, when they go low, usually related to fatigue. So the brain's not able to activate, it's not able to process well. Normally people are going to get cognitive complaints and they're going to complain of fatigue. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to pay attention to the circles here that I have outlined. Lavender. Okay, one of the claims that everybody's allowed to say about lavender is it helps to relieve joint and muscle pain associated with sprains, strains, and even rheumatoid arthritis, which is absolutely amazing that we can say that. Rheumatoid arthritis obviously is an autoimmune form of arthritis, very debilitating in certain cases. Now, interesting thing is we found perfect support for this because we know that rheumatoid arthritis is a condition where inflammation runs rampant. And we usually think of inflammation as, things we're putting into our body that are causing inflammation. It's not just that. Our immune system will produce inflammation as well in the form of something called inflammatory cytokines. And when those go high, delta goes high. And so you see this massive improvement from just inhalation of lavender, which tells me that the immune system is regulating, starting to come more into balance. So not a surprise that, we're allowed to make the claim that, this does help with symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis. This also supports the claim that it helps with cough and cold. Okay, when we're sick, our body is actually making us feel sick because it's trying to attack a microbe and it's inflaming, right? Especially if we're exposed to a microbe for the first time, we're going to inflame a lot. Generally, we're going to feel sick. We're going to get the flu, right? Most people get the annual flu or the biannual flu because the flu virus mutates and all of a sudden it's new and now the body has to integrate that and you get sick. Yeah, not a big deal. We all go through it. But that does suggest that it's going to help with symptoms of cough and cold, right? Now, we're often told that we have to just kind of go through being sick. Well, we don't. There's a lot of things that can help us, feel better faster and can balance out that immune system so that you don't feel as sick. Then this actually suggests that is what's happening with lavender just through the inhalation of lavender, which is interesting. The other thing that's coming up that I always find interesting is, of course, we're allowed to say that it acts as a calmative or a nervine, which basically means that it's going to calm the brain down. You see here the theta frequency actually drops down into this blue theta. Now that's kind of what that means is the brain is kind of decoupling or suppressing the limbic system, which it's not necessarily going to be good long term. Eventually you want to allow the limbic system to come up so you can deal with unresolved emotional issues. But it looks like it's very good for decreasing that, so that somebody can, feel a little bit calmer, a little bit less emotional. Okay, so that was just a fascinating finding that we saw there. The other thing is in both of those frequencies, you see an improvement in all these lines. See all these lines here? See how they're better? Right? That's actually the brain communicating better, which is fascinating. Just through inhaling something, the networks of the brain are regulating. It's incredible. The next frequency coming up here, alpha. Okay, alpha, again, remember it's like the gatekeeper of the brain or the idler of the brain. So it helps make sure that things aren't going too fast and firing too quickly. Now the area that it's over top of is called the motor cortex. Now the motor cortex is responsible for, say I want to reach up and I want to take my glasses off my head. Okay, that's the motor cortex doing that. It's running that whole movement process. When alpha elevates, what it means is it's actually calming down that area. Now another claim that lavender has is that it's carminative, right, or anti-flatulent. So after that big meal, Mexican meal full of beans, right, lavender calms the flatulence. It's also antispasmodic, which means it's going to calm muscle firing, right? When we have a spasm, it's our muscle firing out of control, right? So I find this interesting. I do see issues in the motor cortex of people who have digestive issues. A lot of digestive issues. Now, there's all these fancy terms for dysbiosis. We hear basically an imbalance of good and bad microbes in the gut, candida, SIBO, which is a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIFO, which is a fungal overgrowth. There's all these different infections, and a lot of the time, motility or the way that things move through our gut is the reason why we get those issues. So the fact that lavender calms the motor cortex is huge, and again supports that claim that it acts as a nervine and carminative and antispasmodic. Final one, and probably one of my favorites, is the decrease in this high beta. Now high beta, when it goes high, is related generally to anxiety, but it's like, people can be very overwhelmed. They can be reactive. They can be, very short-tempered. They can have sleep issues, right? Difficulty shutting the brain off, all these things. When it activates on the right side, like you see, it actually is related to the frontal lobe anticipating punishment. Okay, so if I were to, hook somebody up to an electrical current and threaten to, hook the current up on the other end, they're going to know they're going to have high beta activate right there because they're going to be expecting a punishment. Okay. When somebody's brain is idling just like this, they're generally going to be very anxious and they're going to be full of worry because their brain is always going to be anticipating something bad's going to happen, right? Something is going to be punishing. Something's going to be negative. Very, very rough state to live in when that's active like that. And what you see with lavender is an improvement in it. And on the next slide here, I'll show you guys. This is just talking about the role of cytokines in sleep. So reason why we do brain mapping is sometimes people have sleep issues because their brain's too fired up. Other times they have it because their brain is inflamed and cytokines are preventing sleep and immune function issues. So lavender shows it looks like it's going to work on both cases, which is pretty interesting, no matter what type of sleep issue you're dealing with. This just shows a breakdown of that red spot in the front right. And then also this piece back here, this is actually a memory retrieval center. These areas are known to activate together because when our brain is expecting punishment or something negative, a negative scenario, it's also going to connect to old memories that help it support why that bad thing might happen, right? It's trying to anticipate so that it can avoid punishment or avoid pain, okay? And then you see on the other side after lavender, I mean, almost full resolution other than this one here at 30 hertz. So very strong effect, very fascinating. This is just showing the correlates of emotional acceptance. And so this is important because that area on the right side of the brain, among others, is associated with emotional worry and emotional avoidance or suppression. So when the brain accepts a scenario as we talk about acceptance and commitment therapies and things like that, accepting the world for how it is, right? We accept what we can't control and then we change what we can, right? Accepting what you can't control, that is an area associated with decreased beta on that side. So very fascinating there. And then, there's some suggestion that lavender actually affects serotonin. So we have seen some literature showing changes in mood. Now, I don't know about you, but if my brain doesn't feel like, it's going to get electrocuted every minute of the day, I'm going to feel a lot better too. So it makes a lot of sense with that. So very interesting findings for that oil. Now, this is another cool thing that, because we see lavender, decreasing cytokines from the immune system, and we also know that it seems to work on the serotonin system. There's this concept that, some people have coined called tryptophan shunting. And basically what that means is an amino acid called tryptophan that builds serotonin and then also will go on to build melatonin. So not only can we fall asleep, but we can stay asleep, okay? When we're inflamed or there's an immune stress or an infection or something like that, what will end up happening is our tryptophan actually gets turned more into this quinolinic acid than it does into serotonin. And so you see this person's ratio is very high favoring quinolinic, indicating that instead of the body building serotonin, the body's building tryptophan because of cytokine stimulation. So, this may be another reason why lavender is so good at calming the brain and putting people in a good mood, right? Now, again, not always going to work for everybody. I know I have, had a handful of people over the years say that they just cannot stand the smell of lavender. It smells like perfume. They just do not like it. All right. How many people have, just type yes, lavender in the comments, because I'm willing to bet that you've heard that before too. Likely you're going to be seeing a limbic system issue coming out of that. And that's why there's such a unique presentation for every person. And if you pick the book up, you'll find lavender is not the only oil that does this. So you have other options. Now, just another sneak peek at Thieves. Again, we're seeing this was a very common trend that we saw, is this elevated delta being improved, okay? Now with Thieves, I have to zoom up to my notes here. with Thieves, again, the clove in Thieves in the natural health product claims in Canada helps to relieve symptoms of cough and cold, okay, when applied to feet or wrists. Well, of course, if you're applying it to your feet or your wrists, you're also inhaling it, okay, which means it's affecting brain regulation, which means, as we've seen, it's probably affecting immune regulation as well. So we have this massive elevation of delta, massively improved as we move over to the after effects, okay? Not a huge change in alpha frequency. Now, when alpha is low like this, generally you're not getting a proper shutdown of the outer cortex. So usually people will report issues with rumination, thinking, overthinking a lot, difficulty shutting the brain off, getting stuck. Anybody ever gotten a song stuck in their head before? Melody stuck in their head? That's usually related to alpha going too low. Again, we saw improvement in communication, which is amazing. I love that because I'm all about networks in the brain and communication. I'm a network nerd. So the fact that we're seeing that improve is great. Beta, high beta, interesting change in this beta as you see no improvement and actually worsening in the back of the brain here. Now, this is related to hypervigilance or hyperprocessing, okay? You also see the communication issues here. I would highly recommend if this is the case and this is going to do, and Thieves does this in the majority of people's brains, definitely not using it too late at night. It's stimulatory, right? This is what it's suggesting, is it's very stimulating. When you have that activation in the back of the brain like that, you're going to be able to process things quickly. So if you're having to get a lot done and you're having to go, right? Definitely a good oil for that because your brain is processing like crazy, right? You may get a bit overloaded, but your brain is definitely going to be able to process a lot very quickly. Okay, so again, great for that, not great at nighttime. The other thing that we talk about with Thieves is creating a grounding aroma. Now, this is interesting. This is another set of maps that we get, and it's kind of like an MRI or a CT image if anybody's ever seen that. So all of this white is actually the gray matter, which is kind of like the gross folds that you see in the brain. And this is if we cut the brain pretty much directly in half down the middle this way and are looking at the right side of it, okay? As you see, there's a spot here that's elevated a little bit over 3 Z scores, okay? So again, we're kind of hitting that 99 percentile, very high elevation. What has happened in this area, the precuneus, is related to overthinking, difficulties making decisions, difficulties falling asleep, self-doubt, even low confidence and self-esteem issues, because that area, the crown of the head, is very important for putting everything together. So it kind of forms our perceptions. And by perceptions, I mean, you know, whether you think something's good or bad, who you think you are in the world, where you stand in the world, what you stand for, all of that is related to that area. And so when it goes really high activity like that, it's going to make you very anxious about all those things. Some people even report a loss of a sense of self, like they don't know who they are anymore. Very common with that area because it causes you to over-evaluate. It's like you overthink everything, right? And I'll put my hand up for that because that can definitely be me at times. And then you see over here, it actually calmed right down. It's not the highest area of activation anymore, and it dropped down to 2.25 Z scores. So you're starting to get into that more 80 to 90 percentile instead of 99. So, you know, a lot, maybe even 70 percentile. So a lot of improvement there. And everything moved down towards the visual cortex, which again, with Thieves, seeing that back activation in the back of the brain, you know, the brain is really ready. It's looking around, it's ready to process, it's ready to look for things. So not a surprise that we saw that there, but Warm, grounding, the more that this area decreases itself, the more grounded somebody feels. Okay, the more at home they feel, the more at ease they feel, the better they feel in their own body. Okay, so that's a huge change with Thieves there. Now, I had to show this because this is the network, the changes in the networks that happen when we inhale something. Traumatic brain injury analysis. So what we're looking for here, this basically takes a bunch of metrics into account that we know get thrown out of range if there's a head injury. And I actually happen to know the person who has this map, and I do know that they have a history of head injuries. So it is coming up in the moderate severity head injury based on network communication. Okay, all these blue lines that we saw back here in Delta especially are due to some sort of physical injury causing, we call micro shearing. So it's like the wiring of our brain kind of frays, and now the signals aren't being sent properly. Obviously, you see severe cases in NFL players, right, who've had a lot of hits to the head over time. Their cognition goes down, their mood suffers, eventually they can go down roads of addiction and things like that. That's all related back to this. So with this, we see actually Thieves completely resolved any network issues that were popping up a few minutes before that, which is, you normally don't see that. So very interesting how it affects communication. And these are the networks that it's working on. Okay, the default mode network, what you see over here on the far left, hits. Hits are basically how many hits or major areas or hubs in that network are out of range. And so the way networks work in the brain is networks are multiple areas of the brain all communicating with each other. Okay, you can imagine like a manual transmission, shifting in and out, shifting through gears. Your brain has about 300 of these gears, and it'll switch in and out of them within sometimes half a second. So tons to analyze here, but we have the ability to do that, and then we can also see what percent of the network is out of range. Okay, now default mode is pretty much as it sounds. When we're at default, we're just idling. Our brain's not actively doing anything. Okay, we're usually not in that zone. We're usually either paying attention to something, listening to something, seeing something, thinking about something. There's something going on. But the default mode is kind of like the shifter. It's what allows us to shift in between and through all these networks. Very common to see this out of range with emotional and physical trauma. So head injuries, any developmental trauma, any traumatic experiences, sometimes that goes out of range and it just doesn't know how to go back in. Again, like kind of an old car that's miled out. Thieves took that default mode network from 7 hits down to 4. So only 4 major hits. Usually anything under 4 isn't even significant on my radar. And instead of 31% of the network being out of range, only 18% of the network was out of range. So suggesting that even, Thieves working on that limbic can even bring networks back online, which is really interesting. Okay, so that's all we're really gonna have time to talk about today. I actually might have time for some questions here at the end. I just wanted to let you guys know that we do have a pre-sale on our book. The pre-sale price is $19.95. It's available on the store on our website. Okay, so the link's right below there. Anything purchased before March 1st is going to get this price. You're going to have 11 oils. You're going to have references. You're going to have guides. You're going to have reasons why what we found is supporting the claims that you're allowed to say about the oils. Any of those type A, scientific, analytical personalities you work with, it's going to be a good resource to show them. We also have references in there towards other possibilities that these oils could be used for. We have suggestions on what we found in different people. give you a little bit of, help as to how you may use another oil in a different way that maybe you never thought about before. But keeping it really simple, just, 11 oils. If there isn't a claim for the oil, what we've done is kind of just said, well, here's what some research shows, and here's what we found, and here's how it relates to what we know based on seeing thousands of these maps. So definitely a resource you're going to want to pick up. All right. Now, I also am going to offer for the first person to be able to guess my favorite oil that I'm smelling right now, I'm going to offer a free signed book. Okay. And you're going to be the first person to get that copy. We're going to send it out first. So what I want you guys to do is actually go on the Facebook page and post underneath the webinar link what you think this oil is that I'm holding in my hand and that I'm smelling. And it happens to be my favorite oil. Okay. So first person to guess it is going to get a free signed copy of the book by both Liz and myself. Now, the other exciting thing we're doing, because we just got so into this, and we're so pumped to go through all this research and see all the awesome things that these oils were doing. We're doing a launch and learn, we call it. So your Brain on Oils book launch, and we're going to go through and teach you how to use this as a resource, how to interpret it, really keep it very simple, how to show people the diagrams, and again, give you guys some more ideas as to how you may be able to integrate these oils, not only in your own life, but maybe how you can help other people as well. Now, these are in-person events. We're going to have one in Calgary on Saturday, March 10th. Okay, it's at the Village by the university. And then we're going to have one in Red Deer the following week at the Harvest Center. Okay, so anybody who's around, we're going to be doing that. Now, the other exciting thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing VIP admission. Now, we did this before, and what it included was a brain map so that you got to be part of the study, front row seating. You're also going to get a signed copy for free. Well, not for free, but included in the admission. Signed copy of your Brain on Oils book. And then you're going to get to be part of the study for the next research group, because we're so pumped about this that we want to start learning about more oils. And the more we can learn about the effects on a human brain, the more you learn, the better you can teach people, and the more people we end up being able to help. So that's what we're offering. I believe, and Carly will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're offering 50 VIP admissions for each one. So you want to jump on that right away. This is going to be on Eventbrite. We're also going to be sending out an email to your inbox as soon as the event's over, so that you have that information, and then you'll also have the information on how to order the book. If you want to just do general admission, $20, come learn. You'll be able to purchase books on site. I'm sure I'll be around to sign them as well. Liz will be too. So that's what we're offering now. For now, we're just doing it in the 2 cities, but if anybody has any recommendations for us to go elsewhere, we're completely willing. Now, the other thing I want to offer out is anybody who knows someone in research or funding or anything like that, we really want to get some funding to continue this and do some controlled, double-blinded type studies, and really start making moves towards figuring out more on how this is working in the human brain, because we've seen some incredible effects. So if anybody knows anybody that can direct us, that would be great if you could hook us up. All right, guys, that's it. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to answer a few questions. We have about 3 to 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to answer a few questions. If you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, this is going to be posted to YouTube. Tomorrow, you're also going to get emailed a link so that you can watch the replay. And if you want to subscribe, we're going to be launching a lot more info on this. We're going to be doing more webinars just like this one. We're going to make sure that we have room for everybody next time. And yeah, so let me just check out and see what questions we had come up here. Oh, everybody wants peppermint, frankincense. So we'll talk about those next time. Taya, the cities that we're going to are Calgary and Red Deer. and we may even be eventually coming out to Kelowna as well. But for now, that's kind of where we're sticking. And like I say, anybody wants us to come do an event, we're completely open to that as well. Any questions about any of that? Any specific questions about Lavender, Thieves, the book in general, or the brain in general? Anything anyone was confused on? All right. Wow, I guess I answered everything, hey? Do we have dates yet? Yes, we have dates. March 10th is Calgary, and March 17th is Red Deer. And again, we're going to be emailing that out so that you guys have that. And then we'll also be emailing out the replay for this as well. All right. Okay, guys. Thanks for coming out. Super fun. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, Janice. The mapping that we did last year, we will be sending those out as well next week. We just had to wait until we had everything combined and put it all together into the book and everything like that. So yes, you will be getting those sent out. And if you want to reach out to have a little consult, just send us an email and we can have a consult and I can give you a bit more info about what's going on there. So, all right, guys, thanks. We're out of time. If you have any other questions, message us and have a great rest of your night.